Explora is a museum in Albuquerque, New Mexico that uses a hands-on, inquiry-based learning approach to science, technology, and art. It's a collaborative effort with more than 550 programs and exhibits that encourage critical thinking and foster lifelong learning. By popular demand, Adult Night at Explora is held every couple of months, and it is geared to adults 18 years and older. As an adult learner, you will find learning in action everywhere you look. Most exhibits are set up with small-scale materials and equipment in personal spaces where you can communicate comfortably with family and friends. Here, you will manipulate a wide variety of physical variables using hand-sized parts made for handling, and ultimately you will develop your own thinking about what you are experiencing. The idea is to support prolonged engagement, focused, thoughtful inquiry, and easy conversation. The design of Explora's exhibit areas promotes family learning and collaboration, and the goal is to be inclusive. The more comfortable people are at Explora, the more freely ideas flow at the exhibit areas, and the more people of all ages learn. As an added benefit, 45% of Explora's staff is bilingual, and exhibit signs are in Spanish and English. Explora's educators design exhibits with learners in mind, the same way that instructional designers create instruction for their learners. Relating exhibit design to what we have learned in our class, I noticed that a great deal of thought went into these exhibits and that they are tailored to the way we learn best. The following ideas are presented or are present in all of the exhibits that I reviewed. Number 1. Malcolm Knowles' ideas about adults and self-directed learning. Knowles believed adults learn experientially, they focus on the process, are task-oriented, and learning materials and activities should take into account a wide range of skills and backgrounds. Since adults are self-directed, instruction should allow learners to discover things for themselves. Experience, including mistakes, provides a basis for learning activities. People learn at their own pace in their own time. Number 2. Hands-on, situational learning through the manipulation of materials and construction of knowledge in a social setting, as described by John Dewey. Number 3. John Medina's ideas about improving learning by getting the attention of adults with exhibits that offer movement, variety, and color, things that use our senses to encourage engagement. Medina's brain rules number 3, number 4, number 9, number 10, and number 12 are all at play at Explora. And what they say are that brains are changing as a result of new experiences, that we pay attention to stimulating things, that stimulation of all the senses, especially vision, is very important. Vision trumps all the other senses. And we are powerful and natural explorers and are governed by curiosity. Number 4, Albert Bandura's social learning theory, which emphasizes that human behavior is learned from other humans. Explora is a place where the activities are social, because other people are there exploring along with you, and you might be interacting with others that you came with, or with complete strangers the way that I did. Number 5. John Seely Brown's ideas of exploring play through imagination, and how people learn primarily by doing and experiencing in a system that includes other people. Number 6. Cognitive information processing. Number 7. C.R. Rogers' guiding principles that significant learning takes place when the subject matter is relevant to the personal interests of the student, and that self-initiated learning is the most lasting and pervasive. And number 8. Edward Lindemann said that the resource of highest value in adult education is the learner's experience. Psychology teaches us that we learn what we do, and that therefore all genuine education will keep doing and thinking together. To review the exhibits, I'll start with the hydraulics exhibit, where there were a dozen small tabletop models showing fluids running through clear hoses. The fluids had varying levels of viscosity, and the hoses had different diameters. The ideas behind this display were to show the difficulties of each fluid and hose as it attempted to plunge the fluid, lifting weights up and down. The goal of this exhibit was to use the visual senses with a hands-on exhibit and give hints about what was happening without actually telling us what to do. The hope was that we would leave this exhibit wanting to know more about hydraulics by creating questions that we might research at home. Next, I built a simple robotic hand out of things you might find around the house, such as a cardboard toilet paper tube, straws, ribbon, glue, tape, string, scissors, and a cereal box. I watched the other people at the table and looked at the example and created my own version of a robotic hand. It worked at first, but then I had to add cardboard to reinforce it. At this exhibit, I learned in a hands-on manner, manipulating all the materials at the table, applying physics and laws of science. I was applying previous experience in an interactive, collaborative, and self-directed learning environment, as well as cognitive processing and double-loop learning when my design needed additional reinforcement. I learned what other robotic hands were supposed to look like according to the samples on the table, which were left as an instructional mess, somewhat like an unfinished archaeology dig. I ventured around a bit and came to the electromagnetic exhibit, where I created electricity at a station by pulling a magnetic rod through a coiled wire, and voila! Electricity! This was pretty easy and straightforward, and was accomplished by conducting my own experiment using the materials left on the table at the exhibit. I learned what they wanted me to learn simply because the lights went on when electricity was created. When I arrived at the next exhibit to check it out, it was similar to a game of mousetrap with a chain reaction of events. It began with a steel marble rolling down a small chute to drop into a cup, which flipped a lever to start a wooden wheel rolling down a ramp to ultimately knock over a piece of wood. And when I asked the attendant about the exhibit, he said, it was supposed to look like an instructional mess, because you are picking up where the last person left off, and you should try to learn from other people's work. I learned through trial and error as the exhibit fell apart a few times because things weren't lined up properly. After readjusting the pieces, it worked like I thought it should in a repeatable fashion. The facilitator provided minimal assistance with my questions and did not try to teach or help me with the exhibit, which I think was intentional. Around the corner at the huge soap bubble table, there were 8 to 10 adults, and they were all dipping their large wands into liquid soap to produce enormous bubbles. This was a busy exhibit with lots of smiles and laughter. The adults here were learning how to make huge bubbles using the proper technique, taking time to dip the wand into the soap long enough to create a massive bubble. Learning happened through repeated attempts until they perfected their bubbles. The space for the exhibit needed to be large enough to accommodate people moving in and out of the area. It was important to feel unrestrained. This exhibit focused on social interaction, watching others, using multiple senses of touch, sight, and hearing, as well as having fun. Learning occurred and was purely a mechanical trial and error activity. Another exhibit showing a pattern of bubbles was a tall, clear plastic column of water, and when you squeezed the rubber bladder, it created air bubbles inside the column of water with very interesting wave patterns. Where have I seen something like this before? I realized I had seen this before at the ocean. This exhibit is designed to make you think by connecting to previous experiences. I next ventured outside to view the night sky with Jupiter and its moons through the telescope. The sky was perfect, and there were about 5 people with their telescopes and computers from the Albuquerque Astronomical Society. A group of other adults and I looked through telescopes to view planets, stars, and constellations. Edwin Hutchins' ideas about cognition as a socially distributed concept is evident here because no one knows everything, and therefore the collaborative members of the Astronomy Society contribute their own knowledge for the benefit of the whole. Another idea at work here is information ecologies, where humans help other humans use technology, such as the computers interpreting the astronomy data. Etienne Wenger's ideas about a community of practice as it is defined by sharing knowledge across the community as a whole and made available to all is a strong component of this exhibit. The next exhibit was learning about sound waves by singing into a microphone and watching sand particles move on a flat drum. A few of us learned that sound waves and their variations cause vibrations and movement in the physical world, and it piqued my curiosity for learning more about sound waves. I heard music playing in the center of Explora, and everyone seemed to be having fun listening to the Watermelon Mountain Jug Band. Patricia Bovary and Michael Croth's idea about passion are displayed through music. And passion is at the root of creative genius and personal transformation. Passion is emotional energy. It stimulates life and energizes individuals to work toward goals with new ideas and creative ways to deliver music. One of the central features at Explora is the laminar flow fountain. The fountain has streams of water controlled by visitors pushing buttons to create either high, short sprays or long, tubular sprays. It almost looks alive and is fascinating to watch something as simple as water take on a life of its own. Next, the moving air exhibit included people cutting up paper cups into interesting shapes, and they were set on a screen with circulating air blowing upwards, making an attractive and unpredictable floating art exhibit. It was fun to watch people in the process of creating something, and sometimes the creation went up in flight, similar to a helicopter. Adults were acting like inquisitive children. The use of color, light, and air made everyone feel like a creative inventor. Learning at this exhibit was through trial and error using a variety of shapes. Antonio de Amasio's ideas were demonstrated through the effects of emotion on learning, where the exhibit is not only transmitting information about air movement, but also crafting an emotional climate that promotes learning. Nearby, a person was riding a high wire bike across a cable about 12 feet up in the air. This made me think about Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which could apply here as one of the intelligences, bodily kinesthetics. Next, there was an entire room filled with recyclable materials, egg cartons, plastic containers, cereal boxes, and so on. People were creating visual displays, and all the materials were inside of clear containers with bright lights, and there were large inviting tables so that you could sit down and create something. I saw evidence that learning was happening here because creations were hanging all around the room from the ceiling. Heading into a maze of small rooms, I found the turbulent orb, a large plastic sphere filled with sky blue liquid. The idea here is to spin it to create beautiful swirling patterns, which change and morph into other interesting patterns. 3 young guys in their late teens were having fun spinning the sphere and watching the fluid change patterns. There were artistic changes in the way the orb looked as you modified the spin rate, and it created beautiful swirling patterns. I think the learner got the concept of physics and art working together, and it was a simple, powerful exhibit. Another simple but amazing display was the harmonograph, which is an example of a complex pendulum that shows the sum of several harmonic motions. A platform swings forward, backward, side to side, and then a pen records the history of oscillations. There's a bright light overhead, and it is very inviting, even somewhat of a primal curiosity to see what the pen creates, which reminded me of a spirograph toy I had as a kid. As the friction slows down the motion, the circles get smaller. This is physics with harmonic motions and friction in action by the swinging of a complex pendulum on a platform. As the learner, this exhibit made me think about the consistent properties of physics and how fascinating something so simple can be. Finally, I hope to see more research in the area of neuroeducation, which is a field establishing how neuroscience research can inform educational practice and vice versa. The two groups could work together to discover evidence-based findings for teaching and learning. Neuroeducation would be helpful for people with brain disorders, and maybe Explora could help individuals that suffer from brain-related issues and injuries by providing exhibits tailored to stimulation of specific areas of the brain. The end.